Have you heard about CalExit? It's similar to Brexit, which was Britain's exit from the European Union, but CalExit is California's exit from the USA. Secession. Ooh, a dangerous word, secession. But I'm actually for it. I'm for CalExit, but not the way it's configured right now. The latest talk was that Oregon would join California to form a new nation, an independent nation. For the lack of a name, let's just, for the sake of this video, call it Pacifica. I don't know what they would call it. California and Oregon is not enough. We need Washington as well, the state of Washington. And here's the reason why. Have you heard of Megiddo? I'll put the name down there for you, Megiddo. I know you've heard the Greek name for Megiddo, and that's Armageddon. Now, I'm not talking about the war between God and his angels and Satan and his demons, the war that brings about the end of the world. No, I'm talking about Megiddo. Megiddo is a plain in what today is Israel. It's in northern Israel. And at one time, 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, it was a very strategic region because the trade route, the major trade route that came down from the northwest, what would be like Turkey, Greece, as far away as Rome, that trade route came down the coast, had to go inland because there's a mountain there, and cross the plain of Megiddo in order for trade to continue on into what today we call the Fertile Crescent. Countries like Egypt, Israel, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Iraq. That's where the Tigris and Euphrates are. This whole area was called the Fertile Crescent. It was crescent-shaped because this is where all the crops were grown. The land there was fertile as opposed to, say, the Sinai Peninsula, which was a lot of desert. Okay, whoever controlled that plain of Megiddo controlled the prosperity of all of these countries in the region because they depended upon that trade. Overlooking the plain of Megiddo was the mound of Megiddo. Some people call it Mount Megiddo. It's not really a mountain like the Matterhorn, pointy on top. It's a high area, more of a mound, and they put a city on top. And that's where they stationed their military to control that region. It was such an important strategic region that more and bloodier wars were fought over control of Megiddo. Okay, why is that important? Well, think about the West Coast. What if the entire West Coast, Washington, Oregon, and all of California, what if that was all controlled by one new nation, Pacifica? That's all the ports on the West Coast. Where's your TPP now? Trans-Pacific Partnership. Not that it would be done away with, but all trade now with Asia, Japan, China, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, that whole area, all the Pacific nations, all that trade would have to come through Pacifica because the only other way is to run them down the south through the Panama Canal and then up the east coast. That would add so much cost to the transportation costs for those goods that they would no longer be economically viable, right? I don't want to start a war because of those ports, but if the rest of the USA, I call it Red USA, if they wanted to give us trouble, we just close our ports or threaten to do so. See, we could negotiate because we control the trade. That's what's important. Think of the tax money that would come in. We could collect fees from that trade for the use of those ports. We could bring a lot of money into Pacifica. We don't need food. The Central Valley, California, produces an awful lot of food. Food can be grown in Oregon and Washington. It's where all the apples come from that we enjoy. We could supply the Pacific Northwest with food and energy, because California has oil wells. We have refineries. We have military bases here, so we can defend ourselves. So much money could be coming in that it's possible that we could eliminate sales tax and maybe even state income tax and have just one tax, a federal tax, a Pacifica federal tax. If we could get Nevada to join us, they've got Reno and Las Vegas, nice source of income. That could really help us economically. We could be a really powerful economic nation. And if we could get Hawaii to join us, we'd have Pearl Harbor. We could defend ourselves from any attack that might come across the Pacific. Will it happen? I doubt it. But think of the possibilities. What if we were to lower corporate taxes to bring industry into Pacifica? We already have technology. We have Silicon Valley. We have the film industry, what some people call Silicon Valley, movie industry, Silicon Valley. We could bring in manufacturing. We could make a lot of money that we could use to update, upgrade, keep maintained our infrastructure. The big issue would be water. That would be a problem, water. However, Pacific Northwest gets an awful lot of rain, more rain than they need. What if we were, instead of building desalination plants, which are expensive to build, they're expensive to run, they use an awful lot of electricity, which increases the carbon footprint, which is not good for global warming, and they produce pollution because highly salinated water is released into the Pacific Ocean, and the fish around that area don't like it. What if we were to build dams in the Pacific Northwest to capture some of that rainwater, and a pipeline just to bring it over the mountains to Northern California, the very top of that Central Valley? Then we could use a canal system. There are a lot of irrigation canals running through that area anyways. We could use all of that. The farmers could tie in to get that water, charge them either a flat fee per year or so much per acre foot for water. If enough water doesn't get all the way down to Southern California to solve the drought problems we have occasionally, often down here, we may have to build a second closed pipeline, or at least extend part of that first pipeline and leave that closed to bring water down into Southern California. It would be expensive, but less expensive in the long run than desalination plants. And the dams up there in Pacific Northwest could be equipped with hydroelectric generator plants. No pollution, could produce the electricity needed to run the pumps, to run that water down. Would be a very efficient way of solving California's water problems. So it's a neat idea. Will it ever happen? Highly unlikely. I had lunch with a friend today, and we agreed that someone is more likely to be hit by lightning and an asteroid in the same day than Pacifica ever happening. But it's a nice idea. It's an idea worth fantasizing about. And as another of my friends said, after 3 years of Donald Trump as president, it may not seem so far-fetched after all.